Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Hello, and welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today, I am here with author Kalla Harris for her debut YA novel, The Ground That Devours Us. Hi, Kayla. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to chat.
I am so excited about The Ground That Devours Us. This is YA dystopian vampire tale. Why don't you tell our listeners all about it?
Absolutely. The Ground That Devours Us is a young adult dark dystopian fantasy that follows Ruby Clemens, who is a vampire hunter in training. She lives in this post-apocalyptic world in a human compound called Vale with her twin sister Ripley. And on the last training mission that she kind of partakes in before she is graduated into a full-fledged slayer, her sister is turned into a vampire by X, who is this very dangerous and bloodthirsty vampire who has been plaguing the city of Charlotte, where she lives. And immediately after that, the leader of the compound, who is a huge vampire hater, absolutely despises vampires. He wants to apprehend Ripley. But Ruby is afraid that maybe something might happen to her. And when she learns about a cure, she decides to team up with X if he will keep her safe from the clutches of the compound and their tyrannical leader long enough for her to get the cure for vampirism. Then she will help him break into the compound's restricted lab where his best friend is being held hostage there. So from there, a lot of shenanigans kind of come into play, but it's this unfolding of this kind of almost business transaction between Ruby and X, of pushes and propels the story along.
So, The Ground That Devours Us kind of reimagines the vampire take with a little bit of a twist. So I've been reading this book and I have to say I'm loving it. And I really enjoy seeing a little bit of a turn on the way that vampirism is spread in this novel. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so my vampires do not have the typical fangs that you'll see kind of in pop culture vampires. I kind of wanted to take a unique twist. And so, as I was brainstorming ways to do that, I thought, well, you know what? What if I don't give them fangs? But then that kind of pushed the questioning into, okay, well, how are humans then turn? And so, I really loved this idea of vampires kind of when the original kind of wave of vampirism hit the planet, they kind of crawled out of coffins and clawed their way through the dirt and the earth back to the surface. And so I really like the idea of them kind of having these really sharp nails that are very good for creating tunnels and moving through the earth. And from there, I really like the idea of creating, taking those nails, sharpening them up even more, and then giving the nail beds venom. So instead of, the fangs releasing venom into a human, and then the human is killed, and then that's how they are turned. Instead, in my book, the vampires will slice a human if it's a deep enough cut with their nails, and it kind of pushes that vampire venom into the human. And then if they die, they will turn into one of two things, which is a blood walker, kind of very similar to a zombie, except for they really only need blood to survive, but they don't have any kind of humanity in them. They're just kind of like these animalistic creatures that look like humans that hunt for blood. And then your typical modern day vampire that you might see, in pop culture, like Damon Salvatore or Edward Cullen, that kind of walk around in the world and may or may not have a bit of humanity in them. That's kind of something that you will have to check out as you read the book. And that's something that Ruby will also have to decide whether or not these vampires are just monsters or, if the line there is a bit more gray.
I love that so much. One thing I love about vampire stories is how there are just so many different ways to write the vampire mythos, essentially. And so I'm really excited for readers to dive into this take on vampirism. And I think having it be contracted through a scratch kind of adds a little more horror to it, because one simple little scratch is a lot harder to fight against compared to, a full bite or an exchange of blood. A scratch is a lot simpler, so there's a little more nuance. There's a lot more threat against that in this world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ruby kind of even has to, as she's working with X and everything, she's very cognizant of where his nails are. And even, her own sister, very, very aware because it's all it takes is a very, very quick slash and things could be all over. So I loved the idea of kind of just creating this kind of spread for vampirism that, if you're in close quarters with a vampire, it's so much easier um, to then be turned.
So, you've mentioned Vampire Diaries very briefly. Let's talk a little bit about your inspirations in this story and the relationships, and of course, the vampires.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a huge TVD, The Vampire Diaries fan. I grew up watching the show as a preteen every Thursday night on CW with my mom. And I was already a really avid reader at that age. I really loved books, but I would say that I was really into kind of learning and wanting to know how to craft a story. And I really loved every Thursday night just kind of getting the snapshot of what it's like to create these very complex and intricate characters and this kind of supernatural paranormal world with witches and vampires and werewolves and how they play into this small town that seems like a very blip on the radar. But when you're there in Mystic Falls, it feels like a life or death situation. And in some episodes, it really was. And so I really fell in love with all of those aspects, the world building and the characters, and of course the romance. It's no shock to a lot of people that I was a huge Damon fan, and for multiple reasons. But I loved the romantic angles that were explored. But I think what I enjoyed the most, and I think what inspired me the most was the brotherhood between Stefan and Damon, because when the show starts out, they are very much not on good terms. And over the series, they evolve and their relationship evolves. And it's such a very complex relationship. At the root and the heart of the story, I really don't think that the story is about Elena and who she chooses and who she doesn't choose. It's really about these two brothers who have spent such a long time, on this planet together apart and how they kind of navigate all of these interesting layers to their relationship, and how they kind of come back to each other. And so I really wanted to kind of take a bit of that with Ruby and Ripley, because they do have a really good relationship, and Ruby is very, very, very loyal and protective of her sister. But then it's kind of flipped on its head because Ripley is turned into a vampire, and Ruby has been conditioned to hate vampires for the majority of her life. And so it's kind of this inner turmoil for her and really interesting to explore their relationship on the page. I like to think that Stefan and Damon would approve.
So I've talked about Vampire Diaries on this podcast before, and I will again, as I do have Brittany S. Lewis for the release of Blood Moon. So we will always talk about Vampire Diaries on this podcast. And I just always have to say that one of my favorite aspects of TVD is not the main romance plotline, but the relationships and dynamics between the other characters. And that's something that I love to see in any, and honestly, any kind of story in any genre is these power dynamics and relationships between the side characters and how sometimes those relationships hit you just as hard as the overarching plot between, your two main love interests, for example.
And a side note, I have read Blood Moon and it was fantastic and phenomenal, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So just a little side note, Brittany is amazing. I really enjoyed the dynamics between the characters. I think it's really what kept the show alive because of course the romance is the romance and everyone loves the romance, whatever fandom you're in. But I think that the different relationships with characters and the villains were so well done. I loved just kind of getting a glimpse into the villain's head as well, especially in like season 3, with the originals popping in. I really, really loved how they kind of just came in blazing and just kind of just threw everything into chaos. And I think that that's awesome with villains, and but also at the same time they are very nuanced, and the show you can almost kind of relate to them. And so I think that I tried my best to do that with the villain of The Ground That Devours Us. Because I do think that everyone kind of has their own motives and their own goals, and also just kind of taking into account a person's past and how that pushes them and propels them to make decisions that others may be tormented by. And of course, the love interest is very Damon coded. You can look in the acknowledgments. He's very Damon coded because that was kind of my little I would say book boyfriend, because they were books before the show.
I also was a big reader of the Vampire Diaries books back in high school, shortly before the show was announced that it was going to be airing. And I just want to say, rest in peace, LJ Smith. She was a real one. And I really loved those books. And if you haven't read the Vampire Diaries novels, go into it without expecting anything from the show. You really have to treat them as two completely different stories because they are that different, but they're both stories that I loved so much. This is one of those cases where I will never be able to say which is quote unquote better. Some people are always like, the books are better or the show is better, but these are two stories that I love equally as their own unique piece.
Yeah, absolutely. They're kind of vastly different on two sides of a line. But I loved reading them. I'm picturing the OG covers right now in my head.
Yes,
Um,
iconic.
yeah, I think I still even have a few. Yeah, I think I originally, when they first came out, I grabbed one from the library and I was like, what is this? And then quickly fell in love. But I also read a lot of LJ Smith's other works too. The Night World, yeah.
I actually read Night World before I picked up Vampire Diaries. So that was my introduction to LJ Smith. And they are three books in the Night World series, but each one is a collection of shorter novellas within them. So altogether, I think there's 9 stories within the Night World. I love them. Each one is its own supernatural story with its own leading character, and over time within the novellas, they all kind of interlocked with each other a little bit as they kind of cross over a little bit. If you're looking to get started with any kind of 90s supernatural storytelling, the Night World is definitely where I recommend
Hmm.
starting.
Yes, and I think I should probably read those again.
I have been thinking about it. So I recently unpacked a lot of my older books that I had put away in storage when I had moved. And I have been like, they're right up on my brand new horror themed shelf. And I just keep looking at them like, I need to dive back in. So you know what? I vote yes. Let's all read Night World.
I think we absolutely should. That would be a blast.
We
A
can do like
total blast.
a group buddy read.
Yes.
Everyone on the
Reading is always
podcast,
a
let's
friend.
go.
I definitely have to go reread that because it rewired my brain chemistry, I'm pretty sure. Because I remember just stopping and being like, what did I just read? This was incredible.
Okay, so I have a little activity I want us to do, and this is going to be very challenging, but I think it's going to be fun. And I think we should create a ranking of our top favorite vampire characters.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. How many? Just
Yeah, do we want to do top 5 or top 10?
let's do 10.
Okay.
I think yeah, I think we can do 10. Yeah.
Okay, so top 10 vampire characters. And
Ooh.
this
Okay.
can be across any vampire story.
Gosh. Okay. I'm trying to be strategic because there I have some top picks. Like,
I'll name a vampire character and you will put it on a list 1 through 10 to rate our top 10 vampires. And I'm just gonna kind of pick at random. And if there's one that you haven't read, like you're not familiar with it, then just say skip and we'll skip that one. But I'm gonna try to
okay.
pick a bunch of different ones. Let's do a classic one first. Let's do Count Dracula.
I'm
Classic
gonna
movie monster Count Dracula.
I feel like no shade to Dracula, but I think I'm gonna give a 7. Dracula is just not doing it for me.
Next, let's do from Interview of the Vampire, Louis de Pontelac.
Okay. I haven't watched this in such a long time. And then there is a book, right?
Yes, yes.
Or is there
Interview
not a
with the
book?
Vampire by
Okay.
Anne Rice.
Okay. Oh, okay, yeah. I have watched the movie a few times. I'm going to go 8.
Okay.
I feel the shade.
No
Wait.
shade, no shade. I promise, I promise. So for Louis, I know 3 different versions of this character. So there's the original Anne Rice novel, Interview with the Vampire. Then there was the Brad Pitt version from the, I believe, like late 90s movie.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that one is probably my least favorite version of Louis. And then in more modern times, we have the AMC series, Interview with the Vampire, which currently has 2 seasons.
That's so funny. Yeah, I have not watched the AMC. I've watched Brad Pitt.
Honestly, the only thing I even remember from the novel, so I did read the Anne Rice novel many years ago, and the only thing I remember is one scene where, so obviously it's Interview with the Vampire. We have Louis, he is giving an interview to a journalist, and the only thing I can actually remember about the book is he's talking and going on about his long story, and then he goes, "Your cigarette has burned into a long cylindrical ash." And for some reason, that line is the only thing I could ever remember about the book.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a mood. I have not read that. Actually, maybe if it was for an English class when I was in high school, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
But Brad Pitt sticks out to me.
I'm going to have us put Louis and Lestat, who is his like famous vampire lover, together as one character because that's just kind of how they are. They're like 2 sides of a coin. So we're going to put Louis and Lestat at number 8.
Okay.
Okay. Now this next one, you're either going to love me or you're going to hate me, but we're going to put the Cullens together all as one vampire. So how would you
Okay.
rate on our
I,
1 to 10 all the Cullens together?
Okay. So I, of course, as a teen was very into Twilight. I went and watched like the midnight premiere showings and all of that. I was very into Twilight and I still watch it. In fact, I had some friends fly in for my launch event for The Ground That Devours Us and we watched Twilight. So I do feel like it's very ingrained into um my teenage, like preteen years. Um, I might get hate for this. Okay. So I'm gonna put the Cullens at 5, and there's a specific reason for that. I don't like Jasper.
Yeah, honestly,
I don't like Jasper. I like Edward, but also Edward is a little red flaggy because why is he watching her while she's sleeping? It's a bit scary.
right?
Myself as a teen, I was like, oh my gosh. But as an adult, I'm like, maybe we should call the police. Maybe we should call Charlie. If Charlie was a vampire, he would be number one, that man. Yeah. So I'm gonna go 5. I'm probably gonna get so much heat for this, but
No,
it
if
is what it
anyone
is.
deserves hate, it is me because much as I was a Twilight fan when I was, my 16-year-old self going to the midnight book parties at Borders, honestly, I would say Cullens are the number 10 spot.
Yeah, I mean, they're and granted, I'm going specifically off the movies. I have not read the books in an extremely long time. I like years and years and years. But I did not read the book that came out in Edward's POV.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, so I'm being nice because I'm giving it a 5 because it's a bit nostalgic. But yeah, I could never give it any more than 5 because Jasper is there.
So for our next vampire, let me know if you're familiar with this one. There was a movie that just came out, Nosferatu.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I recently watched it. After this is one thing with me. A lot of times I'll watch things after the hype has kind of gone down. Um, but yeah, so I recently watched it. I would give a solid 4.
All right.
Really enjoyed that. I thought it was well done. It was creepy. It was very gothic. It just kind of gives like Crimson Peak vibes.
I
You've
loved
ever
Crimson
watched
Peak.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of gives like a similar kind of vibe, and I really like movies like that. Yeah, yeah, 4.
Nosferatu was a little freak.
I mean, yeah.
He was. He was.
Where
I
would you rank him?
probably would have put him at maybe like a 7. It was a great gothic story, which I really appreciated, but he was such a creep. All right, for our next vampire would be Morbius from the Marvel comics.
Okay, okay. So I used to be a big like comic collector. I'm trying to think what numbers do I have left
Have
of
1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 10.
okay. I'm gonna give a 9.
9 for Morbius. Yeah, honestly, I'd probably do the same.
Yeah, it's I'm just kind of indifferent. I'm very yeah.
Okay, our next vampire is Eric Northman from True Blood, or also known as the Sookie Stackhouse books.
Okay. Also, so I did not read the books. I watched the show. So this might be like skewed, but I would probably just I wasn't like my show. I just wasn't really into it. I'm gonna give it a 9.
You did 9 for Morbius, so you have 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
6, and 10.
oh, okay, okay. I'll give a 6 then. I don't think a 10. Okay, yeah, 6. 6 is fine.
6 for Eric Northman. So for in regards to the True Blood TV series versus the Sookie Stackhouse books, the first season of the show and the first book line up super well. There are obviously some changes in the characters, but between the books and the show, season 1 and book 1 were the ones that were like most aligned with each other. And then after that, the show just started doing more and more of what it wanted to until like season 4, when it's just like, hey, we're just gonna do something completely different after that. And So then seasons like 5 through 7, I think it was, have nothing to do with the books whatsoever.
Uh, okay. Yeah.
We've talked about Vampire Diaries a lot, so I don't want to do too many vampires from Vampire Diaries just because we know that that should really just be the top tier ones there. But I'm going to do a couple. So let's start
Right.
with Elena Gilbert as a vampire.
Okay. I am not an Elena fan whatsoever. When she was a vampire, I don't know. Her personality changed a little bit, got a little bit more edgier, but a lot of times during pitch events when I was pitching The Ground That Devours Us to like literary agents or whatever, I would say like Ruby Clemens is Elena Gilbert if she cried less and killed more. So I'm honestly gonna go Elena as 10.
Honestly, I don't blame you there because Elena as a vampire was completely insufferable.
I really would have rather have seen a main character, Caroline or Bonnie, and justice for Bonnie because they put her through the ringer. I just couldn't get with Elena. I enjoyed Catherine more. I will say that. Catherine was annoying at times, but I felt like she had a bit more of a personality to her and she was a bit more nuanced um than
Loved
just
Catherine Pierce as a character. Like, obviously, she is not someone to look up to. She is not a hero. She is not a good guy by any
yeah.
means whatsoever. But she was such a fantastic character.
Yeah, and I will say like Nina Dobrev, amazing, phenomenal. She did an incredible job with all of the roles that she played.
Throughout the show, Nina
Yeah.
Dobrev played like 4 different characters.
She did Amara, I think it was Amara,
Amara,
maybe. Yeah.
Tatiana,
Yeah. Yeah.
Catherine, and Elena. Yeah, four
Yeah.
characters, all with their own personalities. Like, she
Yeah.
did incredible.
I have to give Elena Gilbert a 10, but Nina, I give Nina like the top of the line. She was
Always.
very, very good at what she did.
She was
Um,
great. So
yeah.
for our next one, have you read So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison?
I have not.
You have to read that one. I loved it so much. So I'm putting that one on your TBR right now.
Okay. Is it adult or is it YA or?
It is adult.
Yeah, I'll definitely add that to my TBR.
Our next vampire will be Frederick J. Fitzwilliam from My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine.
Okay, awesome. I think I have one, two, and three left.
Yes, you do.
Okay. I will give Frederick a 3. Very funny, quirky, and I really like quirky characters in general, eccentric, quirky. It was a cute little romance as well.
It was a
Yeah,
cute little vampy
yeah,
rom-com.
yeah.
So for you have 2 slots left, number 1 and number 2. So I'm going to give you 2 names now so that way you can decide which is going to go where. One of those vampires, of
Okay,
course, we have to do Damon Salvatore. And for your
okay.
other
Well,
vampire, but I'm going to make it challenging. The other vampire that you
okay.
have to pick between the 1 and 2 spot will be the vampire X from The Ground That Devours Us.
Okay, okay. I see what you did there. Okay, yeah. So I feel like X would have to be number one simply because he came from my brain. Um, I've written the story, he's on the page, his story has culminated, but yet he still just wanders around in my brain. Every once in a while, he's like, "Hey, I'm still here." Yeah, so he's my buddy. I would have to give him number one. And then of course Damon will be number two. I'm a Damon girly, but I will say I am a Paul Wesley girly
Mm-hmm.
in real life. I say this in real life as if I'm best friends with these people. They do not even know I exist. But I think it's so funny because Paul Wesley, and for those of you who aren't familiar, Paul Wesley is the actor for Stefan Salvatore in the Vampire Diaries. But Paul has a very similar personality to Damon. It's so interesting. He's very snarky and the dry humor. And I don't know. I love it. And then Ian Somerhalder, who plays as Damon, he is kind of like a golden retriever from what I have heard. I like golden retrievers, obviously, but I like my edgy, like sarcastic, angsty people. I did have to throw that little tidbit in there. I will say there is one character who I would have added into the top five, and it is Celine from Underworld.
Yes, I
She,
love the Underworld movies.
yeah, yeah. She is amazing, and yeah, those movies were incredible. Kate Beckinsale, yeah. And I will give a little shout out to Spike because I do think that he kind of also inspired X, and Buffy kind of inspired Ruby too. This was so fun.
This
This
was a lot of
was
fun, and there we have it.
yeah.
Kayla Harris's top 10 vampires based off the random list I gave her and forced her to choose from.
I'm sorry, Elena. You're done.
Kayla, thank you so much for joining me today on Must Love Books podcast for The Ground That Devours Us. I am so excited for my listeners to check out this novel, and congratulations on your debut.
Thank you so much. I had such a blast. This was so fun. I hope everyone had a great time listening. And yeah, thank you again for having me. I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And for our listeners, let us know what are some of your favorite fictional vampires and what did you think of our rankings? Thank you everyone for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @Must Love Books Podcast. Thank you and happy reading.